Listener discretion is advised.
I suppose we could count some of this as psych. So I did cover a lot of witchy background in episode 110, Not a Witch Crimes, which was one of our Boston live shows in 2018. So if you're craving more witchy info, you should head on back and give that a listen.
That was a great app.
Just a fair warning here, I did a kind of a deep dive into this because my lover, Britannica, had a whole lot of very interesting information. So most of my notes are from said lover.
I want to be your lover.
Take a number. So a witch hunt can refer either to a searching out for persecution of persons accused of witchcraft or the searching out and deliberate harassment of those, such as political opponents, with unpopular views, a.k.a. the sad little orange man.
Yeah, it's not a witch hunt if you actually did the crimes you're being accused of.
Love it.
I'm not going to be talking about the political aspect of this because, frankly, every time I say the word witch hunt in like a political context, I hear it in Trump's voice.
Yeah. Right.
And I fucking can't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Witchcraft and sorcery date back basically to the dawn of humanity, since it very frequently served to explain scientific phenomena that we just didn't quite have a grasp of.
And I fully get it after we went and witnessed the
eclipse.
The solar eclipse.
Oh, that was the hands down most dramatic actual
incredible
experience of my life.
Yeah, and we all three of us, it was me, Lucy, and Scott. We holed up in a graveyard in Tecumseh, Nebraska. And then afterward, we were like, oh, we get why like religion and sorcery exist, because we have all the science in the world to explain what just happened, and we still like can't wrap our fucking heads around it.
It was
epic.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the terror that countless people felt when that happened seemingly out of fucking nowhere because they didn't know.
So scary. It was scary knowing what was going on.
I almost sacrificed children that day.
We were this
to
close.
appease the gods.
Just in case. You never know.
You never know. Okay.
Maybe more kids where that came from.
I know, right? If only we can't sacrifice more.
Overpopulation is a huge problem.
We're
helping you out.
Too many people. We're saving money.
You're saving money.
Okay. So, quote, although accusations of witchcraft in contemporary cultures provide a means to express or resolve social tensions, these accusations had different consequences in pre-modern Western society, where the mixture of irrational fear and a persecuting mentality led to the emergence of witch hunts. In the 11th century, attitudes toward witchcraft and sorcery began to change, so it was previously not considered as necessarily a bad thing. It was basically just like science, you know?
It was like, well, that's medicine.
Yeah.
Right, it works. So
I'll
whatever.
take your salve.
Yeah.
Herbalist in the woods.
So this change was a process that would radically transform the Western perception of witchcraft and associate it with heresy and the devil. By the 14th century, fear of heresy and of Satan had added charges of diabolism to the usual, great word, to the usual indictment of witches, maleficium. Maleficium. Do you know that for sure?
Yep.
Maleficium. Sounds better as maleficium, but I'll
Like
I'll
a
go with
Maleficent.
it. Yeah, which is malevolent sorcery. It was this combination of sorcery and its association with the devil that made Western witchcraft unique. I have to sneeze. Hold on.
Oh.
It's the witch.
You have to release the devil within. The devil within.
I saw Goody Lucy sneeze out the devil.
I can't do it. Distracted.
The devil is tripped.
The Satan pushed it back up my nose. Oh my God. What is that in The Simpsons that you have to say bless you? Milhouse says like, will you sneeze out demons? And then you say bless you to cram them back into your face.
I don't remember.
That adds up. That tracks.
From the 14th through the 18th century, we see the stereotypical witch characteristics and behaviors emerge through folklore. So witches repudiated Jesus Christ. They made pacts with the devil, sold their souls for his assistance, employed demons to accomplish magical deeds, and desecrated the crucifix and the consecrated bread and wine of the Eucharist.
Wow.
Those all sound like fun activities.
I know, right? Oh,
Get off my nut.
It gets better. They flew around at night to attend orgies and changed shapes. They had animal familiars, a.k.a. pets, calm down.
Yeah.
And they kidnapped and murdered children for the purpose of eating them or rendering their fat for magical ointments.
Listen,
Basically just hocus pocus.
you gotta do what you gotta do.
They didn't have
Times are
chapstick. What are you
hard.
going to do?
Yeah.
Just die? So obviously all of this is bullshit. Although there were certainly people who practiced sorcery and witchcraft with malevolent purposes, probably, most definitely, and even people who were fully worshiping Satan, in reality, nobody ever fit the mold of what everyone was afraid witches were doing, because, again, it's all bullshit.
Right.
Quote, nonetheless, the witches' crimes were defined in law. Excellent combo of church and state. I love it.
Yeah, it's great. It's really
The
perfect.
Hat mix.
How could it go wrong? The witch hunts varied enormously in place and time, but they were united by a common and coherent theological and legal worldview. Local priests and judges, though seldom experts in either theology or law, were nonetheless part of a culture that believed in the reality of witches as much as modern society believes in the reality of molecules. So there was like no room for skepticism. Like this was
it was a
what
given.
was happening.
Yeah.
That witches existed, the devil existed, he took a form.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it was fact.
All true fact.
Black and white. Because so much of the centuries of witch hysteria was based on folklore, social anxieties, and paranoia, researchers began to study how much of any of this stuff, so being actual witchcraft, witch hunts, torture trials, accusations, prosecutions, executions, etc. So they were studying like how much this actually happened from an anthropological perspective in like the 1960s and 70s.
Wow.
They were looking specifically at Roman Catholic and Protestant cultures in Western Europe, so that's going to be the majority of what we're talking about today. The charge of maleficium was super common because anyone could accuse anyone else of witchcraft with no evidence.
Yeah.
It
was just it was just people fucking saying shit.
Oh, we will get to it, I am certain.
One of the accusations that I read about was a guy who accused his female neighbor of witchcraft after he woke up with a headache after a night of heavy drinking.
Yeah, it's her fucking fault that he's hungover. I get that.
It's just stupid shit like that all the time.
Like, that's fair. Blame the women.
Yeah. Or like anytime like your cow gets sick. It's like, well, cows get sick.
I don't know.
But no, it's
That
gotta be
sounds like
witchcraft.
heresy to me.
And she has a
Shut your
a
whore
mole.
mouth.
There's a mole on her body.
Well,
So
I'm
obviously-
sold.
Moles. We'll get to the
Say no
moles.
more.
So, quote, the most common suspicions concerned livestock, your sick cows, crops, storms, disease, property and inheritance, sexual dysfunction or rivalry, family feuds, marital discord, step-parents, sibling rivalries, and local politics. Maleficium was a threat not only to individuals but also to public order, for a community racked by suspicions about witches could split asunder.
You don't say.
love
Let
the
no
word
man
asunder.
split asunder.
No wonder the term witch hunt has entered common political parlance to describe such campaigns as that of the late Senator Joseph McCarthy in his attempt to root out communists in the United States in the 1950s.
Yet another evil that Wisconsin has unleashed upon the world.
I always forget that. Holy shit. Really, guys, lock it up.
Keep your shit
Come
to
on.
yourselves.
God.
Build that wall around Wisconsin.
I will fund that campaign. I want it to be a dome, though, because you can't just fly in and out.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
soon
like the
announcing
witches do.
our Wisconsin live show locations.
I know. We had to tell our agent, maybe plan a smaller venue for any Wisconsin live shows because
We've alienated a lot of folks.
Milwaukee's beautiful, though. I do
Love
like
it.
Milwaukee.
Love Milwaukee.
So beyond the maleficium of Western Europe, we see a lot of accusations of, quote, trafficking with evil spirits in other parts of the world. So in the Near East, so it would be ancient Mesopotamia, Syria, Canaan, and Palestine, belief in the existence of evil spirits was universal, so that both religion and magic were thought to be needed to appease, offer protection from, or manipulate these spirits. So spirits in general weren't necessarily evil in a lot of these cultures, so they were just kind of there. So it was
They're just
not
part of it. They're
It
part
wasn't
of
the
it.
same black and white, good and bad as it was in Western Europe, for example.
Well, it's so funny because in Christianity, if you think about it, there are plenty of spirits, but everyone's
Right.
like, well, angels are fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you see angels and you're talking to angels, then that's fine.
You're good.
But if you see spirits,
Oh, spirit.
Angels
You
are
know?
fucked up too. Like they're covered in eyeballs. It's
They're
disgusting.
terrifying.
They're not
Foul.
cute. They're foul.
oh my God.
In Greco-Roman civilizations, you had a lot of groups sacrificing animals, meeting at night, having orgies, drinking, all the same shit, but that was like fun.
All the fun
and
stuff.
Fine.
Yeah.
These
It's
behaviors
us every week doing this podcast minus the animal
sacrificing
sacrifice.
animals.
Well, we kind of hold up Ray in a sacrificial way.
Yeah, where is he?
Go
Barfing
feed
in the
him.
other room, probably.
Probably making his own sacrifice to the gods.
Of Ghostface.
Yeah.
So these behaviors eventually morphed into a pretty standard set of bizarre accusations, including the sacrifice of children, made by various groups such as the Syrians against the Jews in Hellenistic Syria in the 2nd century BCE. So that was a very early one. By the Romans against the Christians, by early Christians against heretics and Jews, by later Christians against witches, and as late as the 20th century by Protestants against Catholics. Oh, and also by the alt-right against the Hollywood liberal elite, because cheese pizza is never just cheese pizza.
Yeah.
It stands
It's
for
so.
child prostitution or whatever CP is supposed to be.
Oh my God.
That's a legit claim that they
Just
make.
a perfect garbage cocktail of like anti-Semitism, misogyny, and like Christian pre-science, like secular bonkers.
Like nothing is new.
It doesn't-
Nothing is new.
I go off on a complete mental breakdown in the middle of my notes, and you will know it when you hear it. I just started typing like this, ramming coffee down my throat at 8:30 this morning and
Oh my
screaming into my computer, running on 4 hours of sleep. Yeah,
Hence the Dobbies.
my dobbies. Ugh.
So these hostilities were generally directed towards marginalized groups, no shit,
Yeah.
labeled as heretics or really just others. This pattern really began to take shape between the years 1050 and 1300, which was also an era of enormous reform, reorganization, and centralization in both the ecclesiastical and secular aspects of society, an important aspect of which was suppressing dissent. So obviously on both sides of that, we just really want to clamp down on
Yep.
those heretics.
All that free thought. I'm not a fan.
Don't like it. It's
Nope.
not good for the
Not
state.
good. It's
For
not
the
good.
church.
It's really not good
Basically
for the
same
church.
thing.
Yep.
The visible role played by women in some heresies during this period may have contributed to the stereotype of the witch as female. Super. The Reformations of the 16th century also prompted a resurgence because people were more inclined during this time to value personal piety over the goodwill of the community. So they were more, I guess, selfish, self-interested. So they were more likely to be like, well, my neighbor's a heretic because she's an old bitch.
Yeah, get rid of that old bitch.
And I want her property.
I want her cows.
I want
and
her
her
sick
land.
cow. Yeah. So things were very black and white, good and bad, and people were not fucking around during this time. Literacy was also spreading, and people were reading the Bible more and also interpreting it more literally rather than listening to sermons that had, like, you know, editorializing more or less.
Literacy is the downfall of society, let me tell you.
Well, we turn it around. We turn it around.
Just listen to what the people who can read tell you, believe it with no questions asked, and everything will be fine.
Or better yet, be forced to attend 3 hours of church multiple times a week, but make sure that everything said in that church is in a language that you don't understand.
Right. Like, I don't see the problem.
The
We're
old-fashioned
going
way.
on body language here.
Body
Then
language
don't
incense.
underestimate the importance of body language.
The whole like Old Testament is just an interpretive dance.
Oh, I love this part.
Men don't really like a lot of blabber.
Okay, so more literacy, more book publishing, and also lots of books about Satan's power and guarding against heresy were being spread around. So it wasn't just Bible stuff. It was people reading the Bible, having their
Bible
own
fanfic.
interpretations
Yeah,
of Bible fanfic.
fanfic. Oh my God, the downfall of society.
It really was Old Testament fanfic.
Ooh.
The first witch trial, and so we can assume witch hunt, is believed to have occurred around 1300. By 1435, they really got going, and witch hunts were happening all over the place. By the end of the 15th century, a couple things happened that put gasoline on the proverbial fire. Pope Innocent VIII published an article about witchcraft as Satanism and the worst possible heresy. So he was like, this is the worst thing you can do.
We will kill you for it.
And then some. And Heinrich Kramer and Jacob Sprenger published a piece called The Hammer of Witches, which blamed witchcraft almost entirely on women.
Yeah.
Deeply misogynist. So that did a lot to propel people's thoughts in that lovely direction.
Arena. Yeah.
There were several ways in which the courts would determine whether or not someone was a witch.
I love this. And full disclosure, I was going to try to administer like a Salem sect check. But
I'm
it was a lot.
disappointed.
It was a lot of like perfect prayer reading and then like a lot of physical challenges. It's not like a fun quiz. So
Yeah.
It's not a mostly bees.
It's not a mostly
No.
bees. So I booted that from my seg. So thank you,
None
Lucy.
of us would pass.
Oh my God.
No.
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 Mm-mm.
Okay, so also trigger warning, this gets a bit violent. Local courts were a lot more severe than regional or superior courts, often employing, quote, crude practices such as pricking witches to see whether the devil had desensitized them to the pain. Also pricking people to see how much or how little they bled. And that would be an indication of whether they were, like, infected by Satan.
Ugh.
Also, I would pass that test because, like, don't fucking prick me.
Yeah.
Every
I will
scream.
scream. Yeah.
They would search for the devil's mark, which could be an oddly shaped mole or wart.
I'd be fucked.
Oh, so fun. I'm covered in moles.
Covered.
Yeah.
And your wart, honey.
And my wart, I know, which is mostly cleared up.
Okay, we don't need to.
Oh,
It's okay.
Okay.
All right.
I have photos.
minimize my chat window. Oh, God.
Or they would test for swimming, which was throwing the accused into a pond. If she sank, she was innocent because the water accepted her.
Yeah, it was believed that if they were a witch, they would be evil and the water would reject them and therefore they would float.
And so you're dead either way. Because if you float, they're going to kill you.
Right. Yeah.
And if you sink, they're like, oh, good.
Yeah. And it's not like they could easily dive to get you if you sunk. And also,
you're fucked.
Your hands and feet are tied.
Yeah.
And you're in clothes. Heavy
Lots
skirts.
of clothes.
Even if you're buoyant, you're gonna sink.
Yeah.
That's just murder. It's not a test. It's just murder.
And that was not classified as a form of torture. It was just
that was a test.
as a test. Yeah.
Yep. We'll get to the torture right now.
Oh,
Capital
good.
punishment and torture were used to get the names of supposed accomplices, frequently leading to a horrific chain of accusations, as described in an article from the Daily Mail UK.
Love.
Torture might include, as in the example of Galis Duncan, a Scottish teenager.
Who is a character in Outlander.
Oh, fun.
Galis
I don't watch
Duncan.
that. I don't watch that show.
Spoiler alert, she's dead.
Whatever. It's a fictional book. Okay.
Galis Duncan was a Scottish teenager in 1590, and they employed the use of a pillywinks, which is not as cute as it sounds.
Tiddlywinks.
A pillywinks is a thumb screw that was used to crush her fingers until they splintered.
No.
Really crushed her fingers.
There's no coming back from that.
She doesn't come back.
Of that.
She doesn't come back. Quote, after being thrawed with a rope, I didn't look that up, twisted around her head, she was stripped naked and her head and body were shaved. Her tormentors claimed to have found the devil's mark on her throat. Another local woman...
After they, choked her?
Yeah.
Bitch, it's a bruise. You fucking choked me.
Yeah. Another local woman, Agnes Sampson, was subjected to sleep deprivation while being kept pinned to the wall of her cell by a witch's bridle, which was an iron contraption that forced 4 sharp prongs into her mouth.
Nope.
So she was being held there by her mouth.
Once again, I'm just going to say that it sucks that we're not in control of when you're in that situation, you can't just be like, I'm done. I opt out. I would like to expire now.
Right.
You know, in those extreme physical situations.
I would also choose death if given the choice. That is hell.
Most of them did by false confessions.
Right.
Was essentially the only way out.
Yeah, to end it.
Dr. John Fion, a schoolmaster, was also caught up in the witch-finding frenzy. His fingernails were ripped off and iron pins inserted in their place. His fingers were also crushed by the pillywinks and his legs trapped by the boot.
Pillywinks would be a great cat name.
It really would, but really...
I like Tambourine better. Tambourine was a great call.
Thank you.
I don't know how you came up with that, but it was genius.
Good.
Even a blind squirrel gets a nut every once in a while.
Okay, so the boot is a metal frame designed to crush the shin bone, and it's often applied red hot.
Nope.
All 3 of these poor people were executed, their bodies garroted to a stake at the top of a pyre and then burned.
Nope.
Very over the top.
Nope.
Most of them were killed before they were burned. And they were only burned because they were afraid that they'd come back to life.
Sure.
So, for example, one executed woman was buried, quote, in a wooden box weighed down by a huge stone slab, lest she rise from her grave to make mischief.
Only Jesus is allowed to do that.
Only Jesus.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just drinking.
Witch.
I know.
She's a witch.
She needs water. She's a witch.
Turned me into a newt.
A newt?
Okay.
I got better.
So I was surprised by kind of a lot of things that I learned in this article, one of which was that during the Inquisition, which I would assume would be like height of torture for heretics in particular, witch trials actually became less common. And this was because of the strict rules and structure of the judicial system, plus increasingly skeptical judges. For example, they would seek to determine whether there was any prejudice in the accusations in the first place. They also didn't allow for naming of accomplices either under torture or not.
Okay. They were like, we have rules. It's still bad, but we have rules and standards.
Exactly.
And they could just burn heretics.
Right.
They had plenty of people to burn.
Yeah. They also required third-party reviews of every statement, and if a person was convicted, the courts were more likely to sentence one to whipping, banishment, or house arrest for first-time offenders rather than death. So, Inquisition, kind of a better time to be an accused witch.
Oh my God.
I mean, you could be accused of a lot of things and still killed.
I know. I'm just saying that was kind of surprising.
And also, like, being thrown into, like, these horrific prisons and, like, not fed and not being able to bathe and, you know, whatever, and, like, being exposed to disease and stuff, not considered torture.
That's still happening now. In the American prison system.
At least there were no pillywinks involved. By the late 16th century, witch hunts were gradually chilling out. This was partly because, like, by now everyone had been accused of witchcraft. And the leaders of society were like, well, being accused of witchcraft kind of sucks for me. So let's collectively move on to something else. Yeah. People were also sick of religious wars and state-sanctioned torture, plus even more widespread literacy led to a bit more critical thinking and skepticism just overall.
Are you sure by the late 16th century? Because I feel like in
what
England,
my boyfriend said.
In England,
In mine,
and
it was the
Scotland,
17th century. And
it was ramping back up.
You can check my sources if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, because all of my stuff happened in the 17th century, and it was, like, widespread.
Yeah, same.
Okay, well,
Like
do you want me to look it up?
No, I don't care. My stuff just happens in, like, the 1670s, basically.
This is when things started to settle down.
And my stuff's not happening.
It's not like it ended overnight.
Right.
It ramped up over like 300 or 400 years, and now we're cooling off over like 300 or 400 years too. So it began to be essentially decriminalized. Like, people were just kind of like, okay. Starting to be like, whatever. We don't really care anymore on a state level. About 75% of witch hunts in Europe happened in Western Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, France, Northern Italy, and Switzerland. Whereas Spain, Portugal, and Southern Italy were a lot more chill about things. When Spanish colonists came to the Americas, there were some skirmishes there too. I mean, they're for the first time confronting these civilizations they have absolutely no knowledge of. So, of course, the easiest thing for them to do would be to call them all witches. And
You're different from me.
Lots of that stuff too. Yeah. And of course, we have the Salem witch trials, but really in the grand scheme of the whole history of witch hunts, that was like
a blip,
an end note, like a very small scale and pretty late in the game.
Yeah, it was like nothing compared to what was going on around like Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Shit was bonks.
It also just like happened in a vacuum. And really only 19 people were executed. So it wasn't, again, it was short-lived and pretty minor.
We just have a lot of information about it.
Exactly.
So that's why it has kind of stuck in the consciousness.
Well, especially to Americans.
Right.
Contemporary witch hunts have been reported in sub-Saharan Africa and Papua New Guinea, and official legislation against witchcraft is currently on the books in Saudi Arabia and Cameroon. So that's great.
Well, that's interesting.
Cover all your bases just in case.
So this article, like I said, debunks a lot of assumptions that I and probably a lot of people have had about witch hunts. Although we tend to assume the worst in numbers when it comes to witch hunts throughout history, but the numbers actually indicate that no more than about 110,000 people in total were tried for witchcraft, and no more than 40,000 to 60,000 people were executed, which is still a lot, but it wasn't like the Holocaust.
Time.
Yeah.
Right.
And while we don't know the exact reasons behind witch hunts, this article outlines a few things that we don't know. Mm-hmm. Most scholars agree that the prosecutions were not driven by political or gender concerns. They were not attacks on backward or rural societies. They did not function to express or relieve local tensions. They were not a result of the rise of capitalism or other macroeconomic changes. They were not the result of changes in family structure or in the role of women in society. And they were not an effort by cultural elites to impose their views on the populace.
These were just like effective side effects of these witch hunts.
Well, I'll keep going. Yeah, you're not wrong. Moreover, the evidence does not indicate a close correlation between socioeconomic tension and witchcraft, though agrarian crises seem to have had some effect. Although the proportions varied according to religion and time, on the whole, about 3/4 of convicted witches were female. Women were certainly more likely than men to be economically and politically powerless, but that generalization is too broad to be helpful, for it holds true in societies in periods where witchcraft is absent.
Right.
The malevolent sorcery more often associated with men, such as harming crops and livestock, was rarer than it was ascribed to women. Young women were sometimes accused of infanticide, but midwives and nurses were not particularly at risk. Older women were more frequently accused of casting malicious spells than were younger women because they had more, I love this, because they had more time to establish a bad reputation. And the process from suspicion to conviction often took so long that a woman might have aged considerably before the charges were actually advanced.
Also, like, older women, like, as a society, we are, prejudiced against.
Ageist.
We're ageist.
We're not virgins.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have any value there.
Mm-hmm.
They're more likely to be
reproductive capacity.
They're more likely to be single.
Right.
Single, maybe
Or
ill,
widowed.
Ugly, like,
all
by
the things
societal
that assign
standards.
value to you as a woman are deteriorating as you age.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer,
I get it. I support it. Get rid of us.
To answer Amanda's question, explanations of witch hunts are so diverse and complicated that we really can't ascribe a handful of specific reasons behind them. Mm-hmm. The only thing we can really say with certainty is that they were consistent with the prevailing worldview of the intelligent, educated, and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally the only string that ties every single instance
Yeah, the cultural elites were like, witch hunting was like their hobby, their interest. It was like a trend.
Mm-hmm.
And so this happened.
Yep.
Well, I sure hope you liked that clip. If you did like that clip, make sure you are subscribing to our YouTube channel, leaving us a nice review, and joining us on Patreon for even more video content, audio content, salacious content all around. Come join us. Treat yourself.